All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making the plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace up the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ASAP in the Morning here on ASAP Network. It is Wednesday, November 9th and 10:05 on the East Coast. I am joined this morning by Pride. Good morning, Pride. How you doing?
I'm good, my brother. How you feeling, bro?
We're good, man. We got another hurricane just barreling right towards us in Florida. So we are preparing and getting ready, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as the last one, but hey, you never know. Stuff's
You're
wild.
a grown man. You'll be fine. Just go beat it up. You're a grown man.
Right? I mean, we're fine. We're not going anywhere. You know, we don't evacuate or anything like we're far enough in far enough in the coast that it's not really going to bother us too bad. So we're okay.
Oh, that's good. So hopefully you'll only kind of really you'll see the winds and you'll be like, oh wow, it's a little windier than usual. Hopefully that's like the worst it gets.
Yeah, that's the hope. And hopefully, we don't lose power or anything, so that way, we can be back here tomorrow morning. That'd be a lot of fun.
And that way we can I can continue to yell at my phone and look like a crazy guy.
Absolutely. We're gonna have Ray Cruz joining us also in a few minutes this morning. But while we kind of get everything settled in, and while you get settled in watching ASAP in the Morning here, you can check us out on all the different social media platforms. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and live on the Roku app, Fox D Network, and Tiki Live. So you can check us out, and you can find all the great content from all your favorite shows on the All Sports All Plays Network. And you can find us on YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network, on Facebook at All Sports All Plays, on Twitter at ASAP Network 1, and on Twitch at ASAP Network. Hit the like, share, comment. We like to hear your takes throughout the show.
Well, not everyone's takes, but
yeah, not everyone's takes always gonna be the best, but we're still interested to kind of hear your side as well, because sometimes we'll call you out for your stuff, aka Damien, whenever he's around. So we like to hear from you. So let us know in the comments section and in the chats where you're watching from, what you think about the latest news in sports. We got a full slate of stuff that we're going to talk about today, but you can also support on Facebook by sending stars. That helps out not only ASAP in the Morning, but also helps out the rest of the network. But all right, so let's get into some football, shall we? Some NFL news. And Pride, I know you've seen this. And I know you were probably laughing hysterically when this news came out. In Indianapolis, Frank Reich was fired the other day, and I talked about it yesterday on the show. And Jim Irsay pulls a move that I can only feel like is a weird Jerry Jones-esque move that he goes, you know what? This is the guy. This is my hand-picked guy that I want to take. And they hired Jeff Saturday, who, no offense to Jeff Saturday, who's in their Ring of Honor, multi-time Pro Bowler, great team, a great player from some of the great years in Indianapolis Colts history.
Mm-hmm.
But they hire him to be the head coach with coach experience, either of the top two levels of football.
Right.
I wanted to know.
If I'm mistaken, he was coaching high school football and he was under 500.
Correct. Yes, he was coaching in Georgia, and he is no college experience, no NFL experience. So now that move, in being kind of what it is, the next, I guess, head-scratching move that came out yesterday is that Jeff Saturday now named who his play caller is going to be for Week 10, and it is none other than 30-year-old Parks Frazier. I'll let that sink in for a minute because none of us know who that is.
No,
he's only been with
another guy who hasn't had enough experience to even be in that situation.
So I want to hear your take, Pride. Jeff Saturday getting hired and then also making this move. I kind of know how I think what the move is for Jeff Irsay. For Irsay and why he wants to make this. But I want to hear what's your take on this whole thing going on in Indianapolis?
So first and foremost, LOL, lols, that's what you get for getting rid of Carson Wentz and thinking Matt Ryan was going to help you. Because if you had Carson Wentz, this problem probably wouldn't be happening. Let's just call it a bug. Now, a lot of people are upset, offended, angry, run amok, bewildered on why Jeff Saturday, of all people in the world, got this job. I'll be honest with you. At first, I thought this was the dumbest move in the world. Jim Irsay said, I like a guy who has no experience because then he can't handle the pressure. Or because then he doesn't know the pressure he's going to handle. That's not, like, you kind of want a head coach to know what he's getting into. So you like this guy because he doesn't know what he's getting into? It's kind of weird, perplexing a little bit, but I digress. Even Jeff Saturday was like, why am I here? I don't know if you saw the whole thing, but he even said, he was like, yeah, I'm asking the same question you guys are. Why am I here? He was like, Grant, I'm turning this down. He's like, I'm not going to turn this down. Right. But why am I here? Now, what Jim Irsay should have said, because had he said, listen, if he was smart, he would have went to his PR team and said, how do I handle this? And I could give you, if I was Jim Irsay, these are the 3 things I would have said. First and foremost, I emphasize he is not going to be the head coach next year. This is a stopgap. This is a guy we can have here just for the rest of the year. And then next year we go get a new coach. That's the first thing he should have said. He didn't say it. So it's going to be hilarious if we see Jeff Saturday as a head coach next year. Number 2, another thing he should have said. It's no secret. Everyone wants to leave. No one wants to be in Indiana no more because of the constant losing, right? Jeff Saturday, he's a happy guy. He smiles. He's got a nice smile. In his entire career, he's been known as a guy that you can go and talk to. There's been multiple times where during his tenure with the Colts, guys have wanted to leave, and he's been one of the guys to talk them off that ledge. Should have said that. And 3, if you don't want to say any of that, and you want to say football sense, there's one elephant in the room that he refused to acknowledge. Jeff Saturday was one of the greatest offensive linemen ever, and our offensive line stinks. He literally had, like, the blueprint of making this more palatable was there, and he chose to, in essence, go, well, we got him in the Ring of Honor. Who else am I supposed to hire? That's the route he went. Like, you need to say from the jump, he's not going to be a head coach next year. This is a stopgap. We also need to do damage control because guys want to leave. Guys aren't happy here. And right now, we don't need a good head coach. Let's be honest. We need a guy who can make sure everyone can come back, sing Kumbaya. So next year, we can kind of salvage whatever wreck it is of the season and we can go forward. And thirdly, if you want to justify it with any football sense, a great offensive lineman could potentially help this offensive line. Like, but again, it still makes, for me personally, and again, that's me being nice and trying to justify it. As a guy who's not a Colts fan at all, please hire him, please. Go get, after T.Y. Hilton retires, make him your offensive coordinator. Let's just start doing that. But to me, I understand what Jim Irsay is trying to do, but I understand it from a guy who's panicking. He's been panicking for 3 years now? Technically 4. Ever since Andrew Luck, maybe even longer, because ever since Andrew Luck, the end of Andrew Luck's tenure, he's been panicking. He left. Now he's panicking. So he's been trying to find guys ever since. And now he's consistently making the wrong moves. And now he needed a bone. He's like, this is a guy who in the Colts, if you're a Colts fan, you love Jeff Saturday. You love him. You love the fire that he brings. You love his energy, his intensity. You love his leadership. You love all of it. So Jim Irsay's like, if I'm going to hire somebody, it's Jeff Saturday. Let me go hire him and let's move on with our lives.
The funniest thing I saw on social media was some Colts fans were like, well, why couldn't they go get Peyton Manning? What? Peyton Manning's not going to coach. He's in a cushy job. He ain't going nowhere.
And even Peyton Manning himself said, I don't want to coach.
Yeah.
He's like, look, he's like, I'm not in the mood right now to coach. I mean, maybe later down the road, sure. But right now where he's at, he's in no mood to coach. Not only is there no, like you said, he has everything right now. He has it all, right? He can go coach high school and no one cares, right? He's vibing, he's chilling. Then he's got that thing where, as much as I hate both the Manning brothers, I can't stand it with a passion. I still watch it because it's very entertaining. When they do their little watch-along things and they start bringing random people, I hate them both with a passion, but it's very entertaining. But, I don't know, man. I mean, the Jeff Saturday thing, to me, it just gives me vibes of Irsay trying to get a win desperately because he got Carson Wentz. Well, let's start before then. My guy let Andrew Luck. He forced Andrew Luck's retirement. Let's just call that, right? He forced Andrew Luck's retirement. Been trying to find a replacement for him since. Got a solid one in Carson Wentz, only to move on from him and go get Matt Ryan, right? People have been calling for Frank Reich to get fired for a while now, and now people are kind of like, all right, you're the last one of the party. So, to me, this, I don't know, man. It just strikes me as a guy desperate for a win.
Ray, welcome this morning.
What's up, guys?
How you doing? I know he just got back from class. He's getting himself educated.
Yeah.
But we're talking the Indianapolis Colts hiring Jeff Saturday, getting rid of Frank Reich, all that news coming out yesterday. But now today he's promoted the what's his name? What did I just say? Parks Frazier. He's 30 years old. Right now, he's the pass game specialist and an assistant QB coach, but they elevated him to the play caller for this next week in week 10.
How bad you gotta be if you're not even the quarterback's coach. You're the assistant quarterback's coach. You know how bad you are? You're just there. You don't do anything. You're just there. You're like the JV coach who volunteers for varsity occasionally.
Well,
Jesus.
let me put the 2-point spin on this thing. And I've been listening to some of the conversation, that Pride put up, about Jeff Saturday. Jeff Saturday is a happy-go-lucky guy. He was just there as a being a counselor type consultant for the Indianapolis Colts. Him and Irsay meets once a week, and they go over certain things. But this is just the Indianapolis Colts. Let's put it what it is. They're tanking. They're trying to get the number 1 draft pick. The way they do that is they're gonna hire a coach that's not even on the staff. They had Coach Bradley, who has some head coaching experience as a defensive coordinator, as the interim head coach at the time of that. But Irsay is on drugs. We already know that. This is just a drug boneheaded move.
What does he say that one more time?
He's on drugs.
I love this guy.
He's on drugs.
I love it.
I'm going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm going to tell you just like it is.
He said I'm not sugarcoating.
He's on drugs. He putting Jeff Saturday in a position that he is in a no-win-lose situation. Jeff Saturday knows he's not going to be the head coach. He's got no head coaching experience except for high school. For God's sakes, on Saturday, he's sitting in a press box at a radio booth at the University of North Carolina being a spotter for the radio network.
Mm-hmm.
And he only talks to Irsay once in a while, but they wanted somebody that was a Colts in a Ring of Honor type deal. I don't know why.
Why?
It's just gonna put it where it is. They want to tank to try to get a franchise quarterback, just like they did freaking when the Jaguars played them the last game to get Andrew Luck. They let the Jaguars beat them so they can get the number 1 pick, and that's how they got Andrew Luck. Point blank, simple. They're tanking for a reason. And I won't be surprised in the next 2 weeks they come out and say Jonathan Taylor is going to be on IR, point blank. We're not going to put it. I won't be surprised if Shaquille Leonard, the linebacker, goes back on IR for no reason. He'll fake an injury. They'll shut him down. Indianapolis Colts is tanking to get a franchise quarterback coming out of the draft. And who are they going to get? I don't know. Bryce Young, if he decides to come out?
No, I don't think so. Because honestly, I don't think they're going to get the number 1 pick. I don't think they're getting it.
Yeah, that's between Houston and Detroit right now.
To be honest.
Hey, if they take the rest of the season.
Well, if they straight up sell, it's a possibility. To be honest, we're still kind of early.
But dude, he's on drugs, man.
They're still halfway through the year. So I agree. Like I mentioned this yesterday on the show that my theory behind why Jeff Saturday was hired is encompassing both of your guys' opinions here. And I think part of the reason why he plucked Jeff Saturday, it's this, he wants fans to still wants to sell tickets the rest of the way. So he goes and gets a guy from like, hey, this nostalgia guy is going to be the guy that people can look to. I think in his mind, he is looking like, I need somebody who I'm not going to rehire at the end of the year and somebody that we can kind of help tank the season. Because Saturday even said, he goes, I don't know what the expectations are. He's like, but I don't have any expectations because basically it's like, I've never coached before. This is, it just, if it goes really well, then it goes really well. He goes, but the expectations is I'm going to come in and not do anything. So, they're going to expect him to lose. So I think for Irsay, he's like, I need somebody that the fans can look to that like, hey, look at this nostalgia pick that we're going to bring in to head our team. And he's, by all accounts, he's a very well-respected guy and he's a good leader. But I think that's what he was kind of looking for. And that's why he said, well, I don't want someone who's had coaching experience because I don't want them to have that pressure of, what to expect, which is a bonkers comment, by the way. But I think that encompasses what you guys are saying is I think that's what he's doing is Irsay's trying to basically get ready for next season. And he's got all this going on that I'm very surprised he didn't pick somebody. He's got John Fox and you mentioned Gus Bradley both having coaching experience on this team. And he decides to go with a guy who's never coached before, but he's a figurehead to the fans. And I think that's why this would be like if the Lions went, we're going to fire Dan Campbell and go get Barry Sanders. It's like football move that makes zero sense. It just,
and the thing is like for them to like hire him, not only is it like I said, man, it makes zero sense at all. Like there's ways you can sell it, but
right.
Even then, like you can sell anything nowadays. You know what I mean? You go to Amazon and people are looking for moldy potatoes, so you can buy anything, right? But like in terms of like legitimate value, like I feel like this would have been more acceptable had Jim Irsay in that press conference came out and said, "Look, we can't hire anyone else. We can't hire anyone else. We're not going to promote someone within only to have a head coaching search in the offseason. We're just going to hire a guy that you guys love so much you can't hate. We're going to, he doesn't have to say we're going to suck, but he's just going to say, he should have just said, we're going to hire a guy you guys can't hate. We'll get through the season, and then the offseason we'll make moves." Had he said that, this would have been more palatable. Because then I could be like, you know what? It's a weird hire, but it is a weird situation. It'd be more willing to go with him. But this man is selling it like it's a major coup. Like, hey, yo, remember that guy Peyton Manning? What if I give you guys the guy, the guy who snapped in the ball? Oh man, there'll be a killer coup. Let me tell you, bro. Let me tell you how great of a mind Jeff Saturday is. Like, bro, like, it's just. Jim Irsay tried to sell it like it was a great move. Had he just was honest and told everyone what it was, I don't think anyone's as mad as they are. because then we know, okay, he's not dumb. He understands we're gonna look for a head coach next year and go on. But like, for him to try to sell it, man, that was great. This was amazing. Oh, why do I want a head coach with experience? Why would I want that when I could have someone from scratch? I just think it was just, his delivery was just dumb.
You know, another way you could have done it too is promote Gus Bradley or promote John Fox, one of the two, up to head coach. Bring Jeff Saturday onto the staff as an offensive line coach. That way would have made it more believable. But who want to becoming a coach at the Indianapolis Colts when you have a fiasco like this just happened?
Well, here's the thing. I think it depends on who they hire in the offseason. Because this is why I'm not angry with this hire. First of all, it's not my team. So thank God, right? So I'm chilling, right? But at the same time, if they hire someone next year, I'll say, you know what? It's fine. Frank Reich needed to go regardless. There's no point in if you don't believe in John Fox or Gus Bradley, if you don't believe in them to promote them, that's fine. I get the whole Jeff Saturday thing. If next year Jeff Saturday is the head coach, or in my opinion, worse, you promote John Fox or Gus Bradley, that is where this decision looks even dumber. Because like I said, if you keep Jeff Saturday, it's this weird thing where why are you keeping him? That's dumb. It makes no sense. And then if you promote Gus or John Fox, that looks even dumber because you had them on your coaching staff before you went and got Jeff Saturday. So as long as they don't do any of those three options, bring back Urban Meyer. This cesspool of a franchise needs an Urban Meyer in their life right now.
Oh, not Urban Meyer.
You know, but like I said, as long as they don't do any of those three options, they don't. Next year, it's not Jeff Saturday, Gus Bradley, or John Fox. As long as it's none of those three, then I'm willing, as a bystander, to follow this path and see where it leads us. But the instant it's one of those three, Jim Irsay is gonna have some questions that honestly I don't think he can answer. Because every time he makes a questionable move and they ask him about it, all of a sudden he turns into Kyrie Irving. And if you ask him, hey, what's 1 + 1? Well, what is 1? What does that mean? And it's like, no, shut up. Answer the question normally, bro. So
my question to you guys then, we know what kind of move that we think Jim Irsay made hiring Jeff Saturday. So now you've still got 8 games left in the season. The Colts have the Raiders, Eagles, Steelers, Cowboys, and then they have their bye week. Week 14. It's a very late bye week. So the remainder of the way, Raiders, Eagles, Steelers, Cowboys, Vikings, Chargers, Giants, Texans. I got the question posed here at the bottom, but how many wins do we see on the Colts schedule the rest of the way? Knowing what Sam Ehlinger has looked like the last couple weeks, knowing that this coaching change is someone with little to no experience, who's probably now way in over his head. Do we see any wins the rest of the way?
I might see one because the way the Raiders been playing, the Raiders get up and big and then they lose games at the end. That's the next game they got on their list on the 13th of November at 4:05 on CBS. The Steelers could be a iffy. It could be, but who wants to watch the Indianapolis Colts who made a ridiculous move on a freaking Monday Night Football?
To be honest, I mean, if we're gonna be honest, I mean, look. Honestly, I think it all goes to what Ray said earlier. If their best players start magically going on the IR, I think they're going over. I lied. I think they'll lose to the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders cannot fumble this bad. They cannot. And if they do,
hey, look, they were up 17-0 on the Jaguars. They were up 17-0 on the Jaguars in the first quarter. Jaguars come back, and they were dead. Jaguars were dead to life. But Adams going off on them. 6 receptions, 146 yards in the first half. but it shut them down in the second half, and they came back, and Jaguars came back and won. The Raiders have ability. They go up in the first half. In the third and fourth quarter, they like the Jaguars. They hit a self-destruct button, and they self-destruct in the third and fourth quarters.
But I just think with the context of what the Colts have been going through, that's why I'm saying with the context. If the Raiders lose this one, then you need to have Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. You got to put all of them on the IR or trade them and just accept a full-blown rebuild. Like, you have to at some point. But for me, like, if the Colts starts kind of giving up, look, if they should, there's no excuse for them to lose to Pittsburgh. Like this kid, like Kenny Pickett, who everyone was like, oh my God, he's so great. The kid, like, isn't he like top 3 in interceptions thrown?
It's pretty
He's
bad.
missed like what, 3-4 games?
He's still a rookie though.
He's an idiot. You know who wasn't throwing interceptions as a rookie? Tua Tagovailoa. You know who wasn't throwing interceptions as a rookie? Jalen Hurts. You know who else wasn't throwing rookie interceptions like that as a rookie? Derek Carr. You want to know who else wasn't throwing? So I don't want to hear nothing about he's a rookie. No, was Andrew Luck throwing stupid interceptions like that when he was a rookie? No. Kenny Pickett is just dumb. He's not good. I'm tired of people saying it's because he's a rookie. It's because he's a rookie. It's because he's a rookie. No, it's not because he's a rookie. The moron sees, but when he had him, this idiot, this sub IQ moron saw he saw Chase Claypool. First of all, Chase Claypool is mid at best. This is not a dude who's gonna get wicked separation or is great with jump ball. He sees him double teamed, acknowledges he's double teamed, says he's double teamed to himself out loud. And this is real life. You can actually go find it. He actually said, I don't know if he was mic'd up or if he was near someone who was mic'd or whatever, but this dude said he's doubled and still flings it to Chase Claypool and underthrows him so bad it was a pick six. Whose man's is this? You bum. Get him out of here. But he deserved to be a first-round draft pick. What? Mike Tomlin should be fired for that, respectfully, because Mike Tomlin is good. But you got to get fired for that, bro. But anyway.
Yeah, I think
outside of the Steelers, they have a legitimate chance to go over. I think the only 100%er for them to win is Pittsburgh.
They got the Texans too still.
I don't even think so. I don't even think so. I think the Texans will give them problems. But then again, the Colts have kind of struggled in recent years against the Texans. Like if the Jaguars wouldn't exist, the Houston Texans would be their Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's like if I'm Jim Irsay, again, to what Ray was saying earlier, if there's only one game I know I can win, and the rest it's iffy, I might just straight up say, nah, bro, let's take some L's. Because think about it, you have a built-in excuse. You really do. Jeff Saturday, he's never coached before. It takes time to learn. He's gonna go on a 3-game losing streak. They could ask him why he's gonna say learning to be a coach in the NFL, it takes time. That's what they're gonna say. They're gonna write out that excuse until the end of the season. So personally, I think Jeff Saturday could save the Colts season by getting them a top 5 pick. To be honest, if I'm Jeff Saturday, run backwards.
Well, to get that top 5 pick, he's gonna have to tank the rest of the season because they're already 3-5. They're 3-5. They're only 2 games behind the Tennessee Titans. A game behind Jaguars, a game behind the Indianapolis Colts, and 3 games behind the Tennessee Titans. So,
yeah, the crazy thing is throughout the season, the Colts are still second in the division right now. But I look at their schedule. What's that?
Who's first in the division?
Tennessee Titans are first in the
who's their
AFC
quarterback?
South.
Ryan
Malik Willis.
Well, Willis is right now is because Tannehill's hurt.
No.
No what?
Ryan Tannehill is out there in blackface because y'all been disrespecting Ryan Tannehill, and he said, "Watch, I'm gonna pretend to be someone else." And now all of a sudden, y'all love that you love me.
Wow!
I took
And he suddenly got so much more athletic too.
It's got to. Yes, he went to the gym, man.
And it's so it's so funny what your theory is. They showed him on the sideline sitting there white as a ghost. So
because that's not him, Ray. I'm telling you, it's not him.
That's it. They swap.
Paint on him. I'm telling you,
it's like
bro.
Freaky Friday. It's like Freaky Friday.
And Tannehill went to Texas A&M, not Liberty.
Yes, that's what I'm. Listen, Matt. Listen, we got this, bro. Me and Ryan Tannehill, we're fine. We'll be okay.
But I look at the rest of the Colts season. I do see 3 games that they could be very competitive, and one of them is this weekend at the Raiders. The Raiders have not been. They've just not been good. Like this whole year, they've been massively underwhelming compared to their expectations. They made the playoffs last year. You had that whole thing go on in the offseason. You've got McDaniels coming in. It doesn't look good, even with Devontae Adams at wide receiver. So I think that's a game that the first game, new coach, if he can kind of rally the guys in the locker room around, maybe that's a game that they could possibly win. But then you got the Eagles. That's not going to be a win. I think the Steelers, we kind of already touched on that. The Steelers are kind of a dumpster fire right now. Their season, the direction of their franchise, they've got to pull out of this skid in the offseason really hard. And the only other win I think I see on the schedule is week 18 against the Texans. And that was the game that they tied early in the year.
Yep.
So, or the first week of the season. So I think those are the only 3 games that they legitimately have a chance to win. The Vikings and Chargers have actually had a lot of close games. So those are games that I could see those being fairly close also. But just as bad as they looked against the Patriots last weekend, I don't know. It's really kind of it's very intriguing to see if Jeff Saturday, without coaching experience, can actually come in and help rally this team to be somewhat relevant the rest of the way. But I think we're all kind of in the same boat. I don't think that's a possibility. They're probably going to end up. Yeah.
What kind of game plan is he going to come in with?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark right now. Is he gonna be able to, being a first-time coach and not knowing what all these coaches kind of experience week in and week out? He's legit got 1 week to learn everything there is to know to just be a regular NFL head coach, not even to be a good one.
Well, not necessarily though, because I think step 1 is figuring out, do we care to win anymore? That's step 1. If they care to win, then yes, now he's kind of under immense pressure. If they don't care about winning and they're in a situation where they're like, we're just tanking, Jeff Saturday doesn't really have to learn much.
No.
You know what I mean? So for me, like the way I'm looking, it all depends on whether or not the Colts really want to win. Like you said, listen, I think the only game they're going to win is going to be against Pittsburgh. That's the only game that I can confidently say they're going to win. Like you said, the Raiders, maybe, because the Raiders, like to Ray's point, shoot themselves in the leg all the time. Then they got surprise Pikachu face when they're bleeding. And then the Texans, but like I said, I don't even see the Texans thing being legit because for the last couple of years, Texans always had their number one way or another. So now it really comes down to, do we care to win? Because now you're looking at it, and let's pretend it's 3 wins. Let's pretend they got, let's give them those 3 wins. Your 6 wins under 500. That's 6 wins for the year, under 500. Let's pretend that gets you second in the division. Let's pretend. I don't know if it will, but let's pretend it gets you second in the division. You still doesn't get you a wild card spot. So you're not really playing for any postseason aspirations. But that, with those 6 wins, that won't put you in the top 5 for you to be able to get a franchise quarterback, which is what you would want to get if you're tanking. It would put you more on like the 10th, like between 7 and 11, where you got to settle for a guy like Kenny Pickett. So it's like they got to figure out, can they really salvage the season? They're going to have to do a phenomenal turnaround. I don't think they can do it because last year, at least they had guys who was like, you know what, we're going through it, but we got this. We're the little engine that could. We got it. Never mind the fact that Jonathan Taylor had a historic year, but they were like, we got it. We got it. This year is different because no one wants to be there. So they got to figure out, do we want to win or not? If they don't want to win, then Jeff Saturday really has no pressure on them. Just go out there, just pretend you're talking, and then just let them do whatever they want to do.
I think one of the biggest areas of concern, and part of the reason maybe why Jeff Saturday was brought in, and you guys had kind of made this point. The offensive line has not played well. They've allowed the most sacks in the NFL. And to this point, they're also the highest paid offensive line as a group in the NFL. So they went out, spent all this money on offensive linemen, and they're not performing up to the expectations that were put upon them at the beginning of the year. So I think that's a big area of concern that they need to address quickly. And maybe Jeff Saturday can come in and help that offensive line. I think that's going to be a big indicator if they try to actually push forward to win games, or if they just continue to not be able to get it fixed over the next couple of weeks. Just, all right, we're going to start putting people, like you said, Ray, start putting people like, oh, they have a minor injury. It's IR. Just save you for the rest of the season. Save you for next year. But that offensive line is definitely going to be a big question mark for the rest of the way for the Indianapolis Colts. But we'll find out how that's going to happen with Jeff Saturday in his first ever game coaching in the NFL this weekend at Las Vegas against the Raiders. So that's, that we're going to, as this develops, we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more later on this week and going into next week. We'll move on to some college football. The college football playoff rankings were released last night, week number 2. And we saw, I guess, some surprises and some not surprises. Your guys' reactions to who was in the top 6, and I guess do you have any surprises that are in that shouldn't be in? Any surprises that were left out? What are your reactions to the top 6 of the college football playoff rankings?
To me, I think.
You want to go over there? Okay.
Yeah, I think Georgia's is seated right. I think Georgia should have been number 1 at the beginning of the college playoffs ranking, not Tennessee. They showed Tennessee why they didn't belong at the number 1 spot on Saturday, where Georgia actually dominated the whole entire game. And that Ohio State had problems with Northwestern. Northwestern hasn't won a game on the U.S. soil. The only game they won is over in Ireland against Nebraska. They should just move to Ireland. That's the only place they're winning right now. So, but that was a storm game. So the conditions on that game were pretty thing. But this college playoff is going to play out this weekend. TCU got to go into Texas. They got to go play Texas at Texas. TCU has a problem in November. Certain parts of November, TCU goes away from what they've been doing the first 4 or 5, 8 week, 9 games. They'll go away. They'll have one bad game in November, and that will cost them their spot. So that's going to play out part of this weekend. The Michigan-Ohio State game is going to play out too, because they're going to Columbia this year? They're playing in Columbia. So they're going to go up to the little horseshoe, and this game is going to be a rivalry game. Michigan is going to try to repeat what they did last year to C.J. Stroud. But the only problem with this is they're playing Ohio at Buckeye, so it's going to be a tough game for Khaki Pants, what we call Jim Harbaugh on the college breakdown show. But to me, I think that those two teams are going to play themselves out. I wouldn't be surprised you might see Oregon jump back in if Oregon keeps winning what they're doing right now. They might jump in because the only loss they had was against the number 1 Georgia team, but it was a blowout for week 1. But they have been playing excellent football the last 9 games. So that's why I look at it.
Pride, you got some reactions to the college football playoff rankings that were released last night.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just glad I was able to wake up today. I looked in the mirror and I said, today life will be fair. I looked in the mirror, I was like, life will be fair. And I saw Alabama out of the
Yep. Number 9.
Well, they went down to number 10 based on the is that the AP?
Yeah, it's the top 25
Oh, we
college
lost
football
him.
ranking. The
Oh,
college
we
football
lost him.
ranking, Alabama is ranked number 9. If you look at the poll here, it's probably number 10 in the college playoffs. But
I'm trying to pull it up. My internet's not cooperating right
yeah,
now.
I mean, I got the wins here, so my internet is going flickering in and out. So you might lose me a couple times, but
Hey, there we
because of the
go.
storm.
I'm sorry.
Pride's
But
back.
I got excited, my bad. But
You got excited.
you hit the wrong button.
I just got excited and my phone blew up. But look, Georgia. I think Georgia should have been number 1. That's just me. I feel like all year they should have been number 1. I get the point of them putting Tennessee up, but again, kind of because they're kind of was like, oh yeah, let's put them number 1, so that way Georgia can beat them, and then we can put. And it's like you didn't have to do that, but to each their own. I just am glad I'm in a world where they got Alabama at 10.
Yeah.
I honestly thought they were gonna find a way to leave Alabama and drop them at 6.
Well,
If I'm mistaken, they were at 4.
They were at 6.
They were at 6. I thought they were gonna leave them. I thought we were gonna go, and they were not gonna take them. I thought at the top 6, I thought Bama was gonna be number 6, regardless.
No,
If I'm mistaken, was it? Fact check me. Last week were they 4?
No, last week.
No.
Last week they were number 6.
Alabama
was.
Bama, yeah.
Yeah. So
with the top 4 was Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, and then you had well,
you had
they were
last week you had Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson. And Michigan was 5.
5, and then Alabama was number 6.
And Bama was 6. I didn't think, honestly, I thought they were going to try to do everything in their power to try to keep them in there. I really did, like, wholeheartedly. I thought they were going to do everything in their power to try to keep them in.
Well, the only problem with that scenario was Tennessee lost. So Tennessee beat Alabama. Then you had LSU beat Alabama. So how are you going to put Alabama above LSU and Tennessee, who beat them head to head?
Well, it's the same thing. When was it? Last year when they had Alabama 1. And for the longest, and in all actuality, they didn't even deserve to be, like, let's be honest, they should have been like 4, like 3 or 4.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like the committee always finds a way to, like, feng shui everything or whatever. But Clemson dropping is kind of surprising, only because I don't know why they've been highly regarded this whole time.
That's because of the coach.
I'm probably is because Dabo, but even then, I'm just kind of like, perplexed. I'm interested to see how Tennessee bounces back. But yeah, no, honestly, for me, it's just I'm just surprised it took like what? Yeah, it's like 2-3 weeks for Georgia. And like I said, I personally believe Georgia's until further notice is number 1. Until further notice, I don't think, like, even if they, as long as they keep winning, I don't think there's no way that you can look at anyone else and be like, oh yeah, they like that. That's just me. And then Ohio, they're number 2. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, Ohio State and Michigan both struggled in their games. Ohio State struggled the entire game against a 1-7 Northwestern team. Michigan was down at halftime on the road at Rutgers 14-17, and then came out in the second half and ended up winning 35-17. Georgia, I think, clear cut number 1. I'm pleasantly surprised with the fact that the top 6 played out the way it did. Because I think that top 4 is kind of well deserving right now, and then 5 and 6, you can make the arguments You can make some arguments either way. But what I honestly thought was going to happen after Saturday is I thought Tennessee would only drop to 4. TCU would stay at 5, and LSU would jump to 6. That's honestly how I thought it was going to play out. But I'm very pleasantly surprised it did not. However, the rest of the way, Ray mentioned TCU's got to go to Texas this weekend. Ohio State has to play against Michigan at the end of the year. So of those games, TCU wins, they can stay in. Basically, they win out. I think they stay in. Michigan and Ohio State, the likelihood of both teams getting in after that game happens of Michigan, Ohio State is very, very slim. Only one of those two is going to get in because they're both in the Big Ten East. One of them is going to get to the Big Ten title game, and they have to win out to get in the playoff. That means that we hypothetically could see a 2-loss LSU team make the playoff because they are in the driver's seat in their division to play Georgia in the SEC title game.
Oh, can I mention something about this?
Sure.
Even though LSU has a track to get into the title game, but Tennessee beat LSU head-to-head.
But what the committee looks at is they look at teams that also they value teams that make their conference championship game. Now, that's what they say. We know that's been I'm not going to get an argument about that. But what I'm saying is that if LSU somehow beats Georgia in the SEC title game, they're getting in, and Georgia's staying in, and Tennessee's out.
110%. Especially after it was what 27-13 or something like that.
I'm just saying, prepare yourselves.
Yeah, and we've seen this where like the head-to-head matters until it doesn't. Last year, Michigan, what was it? I think it was Michigan State that beat Michigan.
Not last year, but I know the precedent.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I think it was Michigan that beat Michigan State, and they were still above. You know what I mean? Like the one that lost was still above, and they just made some stupid random excuse that literally made no sense whatsoever. So they do that with the committee. Like the heads-to-heads matter until they don't. They would rather have LSU in and boot Tennessee rather than have, again, in a situation that they can kind of feng shui. You know what I mean? So like I can honestly see something like that. Now, well, I don't think LSU can do it. But to Craig's point, if they do, you almost would have no choice but to put them in there. And you already lost one cash cow in Alabama. So you can't lose Georgia. So you're going to have to come up with some reason to keep them in. So you'll have to see it.
It'd be chaos, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
But yeah, I think if that improbable does happen, Georgia would likely stay in. TCU, if they went out, they'd obviously catapult a little bit higher. The winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game is 99.9% likely to win the Big Ten. So that team's going to be in. And then that fourth team, if it's LSU wins the SEC championship game, LSU and likely Georgia, or maybe Tennessee, because we've seen that occasionally where a team that doesn't make the SEC title game, a la Alabama a few years ago, where they still got in, even though they didn't play in their championship game, and it was chaos. So we'll still likely see 2 SEC teams in the playoff, one Big Ten, one Big 12, depending on if everything kind of plays out as we expect it to.
I can't wait till they switch because 4 is not enough. 4 is not enough.
And that brings up a really good question. We've talked about it a few times here on the show, is how many teams in the college football playoffs is enough?
I think 8.
I think they should go to the system with the FCS does, the football championship series does. Take the top 25 teams. You take the first number 1, number 2 rank. You put them in a bye week, and you play everybody else, and then they join in the next round. That's exactly what they should be doing.
But that's an odd number.
That's why the FCS works it, because they take the first two, they take the 1 and the number 2 team in their division, in their polls, and they have a bye week the first week.
Oh, you're talking about in each division? Oh, okay. I thought you meant like number 1 and number 2 in like the top 25. Okay.
No, you take the top 25, you take the number 1 team and the number 2 team, give them a bye week.
You don't think that'll be too long though? Because here's my concern.
You put them in the bowl games. You use the bowl games for it. You take the top 25 bowl games, and you stick them teams in there in the bowl games, and you play them. And then as they go, they move on.
So go ahead, Pride.
Because here's my thing. Like, I just don't want it to be a point where now we're just kind of letting, like the NBA in the play-in, right? Like, now we're just letting anyone come in for any reason whatsoever. Like, oh, wait, you participate in our sport? Come on in. The water's fine. I just don't want something to something like that. But at the same time, I always thought it was dumb for them to do a top 25 and only 4 make it.
Yeah.
Right.
I've always thought that was dumb, because it's like, so what about 20 through 25? What is their purpose? Like, why are they here? Like, that, like, to me, that doesn't make that never made any sense. It always kind of confused me. So I think we do need to add more teams. We just got to find a way to like make it make sense and make it more palatable. The FCB, if they try it that way, I would try that out for like 2 years. Then if that doesn't work, you go from there. But it's either A, you do that, or B, if you want to stay with 4 or 8, then you only do a top 10. There should not be a top 25, because then the top 10 is like, okay, these top 10s have a legitimate gripe and have a legitimate argument to be in the playoffs. You know what I mean? It'll be like however much you have, and then the outliers, right? The guys who are right there nipping at their heels. It's either you do that, or you change it to where you can try to allow everyone in the top 25 to, get a playoff berth or whatever. But like, they gotta do something, because to be honest, it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. Because listen, it's a top 25, and who did we talk about? The furthest we went was 10, and the only reason why we went 10th was because of Alabama. That's the only reason why we went down that far.
Well, if you look at it this way too, is if they do 8, that means they can put in 4 SEC teams. They're gonna find a way to get all these SEC teams in a playoff berth. It doesn't matter.
It's the same thing with the 25, because if we're gonna do like based on the polls at the top 25, it's the same thing.
Yeah, but you get the other 25 teams a chance to get in there and upset these SEC teams. So if you only do 8, 4 out of the 8 could be the SEC teams, and everybody else. And then instead of being the college national championship, it's going to be you go beat the SEC. So that's all the basis was going to be.
So your thing is you don't care if they have more SEC teams. You're just like, let's also get everyone else in here. So that way it kind of evens it to the point where like it's as even as it possibly can, consider this odd number.
Right. Because you're not going to have 25. You don't have 25 SEC teams. So if you do the top 25, you set the first and 2 out, and you do what the FCS does when their top 25 comes out, they have the number 1, number 2 team has a bye week the first week. Everybody else plays, and they join in the second round.
So, yeah, just to clarify, the FCS does the top 24 teams, and the top 8 teams get buys. Everybody else does play-in games. Mm-hmm. But when they do that, that's an opportunity. I always thought that there's a way you can do it. All the conference champions automatically get in, and then you can do based on whatever. If you want to do like a mix of the BCS or a selection committee or whatever, you can then get like a bunch of at-large bids. And I think, you're going to end up getting a handful of SEC teams, but you're also going to get some other big name like right now this year, you would likely have Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Utah all in from the Pac-12.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a lot of Big Ten teams, but you're going to get Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, all 3 of those teams. You're going to see more teams like right now, a North Carolina would be in there. a Texas would be in there. Like all those teams would kind of get in. So now you're getting more of those big brand names in. And Damian, I want to touch on this. If Illinois had actually won against Michigan State, the lowly Michigan State, then yes, you could make the argument they should be higher in the polls. But they lost to a bad Michigan State team, so their season is kaput. They're done.
Yep.
But I think that's a good point. Is if you were able to expand it to the point where you have all the conference champions and then the rest at large bid teams, even if it's only 16 teams, or I think that would 16 would likely be the number there, because you've got the Power 5 and then the Group of 5. So you've got 10 conference champions right now potentially would get in, and then the rest of those other 6 would be at large bids based on all that based on all the rest of the polls, however you want to look at it. So I think it'd be good to expand it. All right. Let's kind of shift some gears here. We're at the top of the hour, 11 o'clock here. So let's take a very quick break, and we will be right back here on ASAP in the morning.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. We're talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
What did you say?
I said Kobe Bean Bryant has been overrated ever since he passed away.
Now, I'd say they could lose about 4, but I don't see them losing 5. You know what I mean?
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
This is the Fox D Streaming Network. Register to come on our channel at foxdnetwork.com.
All right, welcome back to ASAP in the morning here on the All Sports All Plays Network. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course live on the Roku app, Fox D Network, and Tiki Live. So we'll change some gears and we'll talk a little bit of baseball, because we got the World Series had just concluded. Houston Astros winning in 6 games, and now the frenzy that will be free agency is kind of already taking full swing. We've got some big names that have already opted out of contracts to hit the free agent market. And players like Jacob deGrom, Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, just to name a few. So looking at these big name free agents, are you expecting, Ray, there to be a lot of movement in free agency this year, or do you think a lot of these guys are just opting out to re-sign with teams and kind of test their market value?
Well, Aaron Judge, we know he's going to take the Yankees off his Twitter feed, everything else. He got no Yankees and stuff associated with that. I think he's looking for a bigger contract. The projection of a contract that he's looking for is a 9-year, $324 million, $36 million average annual value. So become the question is that, will the Yankees come out and strike that deal with him? Or will the Dodgers come in and play the big ball game and try to get him over to LA? to go with Freddie Freeman and all those players. Also, you got to look at Trey Turner, the shortstop. It's going to be a big market out for him because the Atlanta Braves offered $100 million to Swanson Dansby. He turned him down because he's got Freeman's old freaking agent. So to me, I think that's going to be a problem. So you might look at the Braves trying to sign Trey Turner there to be their shortstop. That'll be a good sign there. There also have been rumors that the Braves are going after DeGrom too, and so is the Texas Rangers. So that's going to be interesting too if the Atlanta Braves can get Grom as one of their starters. So, I mean, it can be one of their, starting masterpiece. We'll go with Fry. So, because Shorker, we don't know what his problem is going to be because he's injury prone. So we don't know exactly if he's going to be healthy next year or if he's going to get injured during the year because he hasn't pitched in the last 2 years. So that's going to be that's what you're looking for the Braves. Carlos Carrera, the shortstop, they talking about him going to the Dodgers also. So
yeah, I think this is going to be a big this is going to be a big off season for a lot of the big markets because some of the names that have been linked to some of the highest profile free agents, Dodgers, Yankees, and the San Francisco Giants also kind of thrown in the mix. The Mets are obviously looking to re-sign guys that are opting out. But you mentioned Aaron Judge is one that is really, I think a lot of eyes are going to be paying attention to, is the fact that he's coming off such a historic season. And the Yankees, he probably feels a bit slighted that the Yankees didn't offer him what he feels like he's worth. So I'm very curious to see if he does in fact go back to the Bronx. I honestly don't think he will. I think the Yankees have maybe intentionally or unintentionally burned that bridge, maybe not completely, but that's that bridge that you see in the movies. It's basically hanging on by a thread. Like I think that's the bridge that right now that Judge is standing on with the Yankees. So there's a really strong possibility he could not be back in pinstripes. And I think if there's any spot that he could go otherwise, it probably would be the Dodgers. So that's a team that I think is, you mentioned they're also looking at Carlos Correa because Trey Turner opted out. And now he's going to be, I think he's going to be somebody who's going to end up playing in another uniform this next year. Xander Bogaerts is another shortstop target for a lot of teams. I think there's a lot of intrigue this year as far as top free agents. You've also got Carlos Rodon who opted out with the San Francisco Giants this year. He's being linked to the Rangers, back to the Giants and the Cardinals. You mentioned Dansby Swanson. He's been linked to the Braves, Mariners, and Twins. And then top catcher Wilson Contreras. Conversation, is he going to go back to the Cubs? Is he going to go to the Cardinals? The Angels are also teams that have been linked to. There's a lot of interesting moves that can be made. So that free agency starts, I believe the qualifying offer period ends tomorrow. And I think free agency starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have that in front of me right now.
I don't see it, but one name comes to mind: the center fielder Brandon Nimmo from the Mets. He could. I mean, to me, he could end up on the Braves team too. I mean, Braves need a center fielder.
Yeah, he's been linked so far. Back to the Mets, the Tigers, and the Rockies. So there are some teams that I think are going to be making a lot of moves. The Rangers have been thrown in because they spent so much money this last year on two of their infielders. So is that a team that maybe is trying to kind of spend their way to get back into relevancy? The Tigers have made a ton of offseason and front office moves. So they're finally going in a different direction. And they're being linked to a few different high profile free agents. So I think there's a lot of intrigue that's possible here with a lot of these teams. One person that will be off the books is Edwin Diaz, the closer for the New York Mets. He did reportedly sign a 5-year deal worth $102 million with the Mets this week. So that's somebody who's already kind of off the list. But free agency does get started this week, within the next week. I have to get a calendar because I don't have that in front of me. But another kind of interesting tidbit is the Astros and Phillies World Series that just concluded. It's the second least watched World Series behind the 2020 World Series, which was the Dodgers and the Rays.
Okay, I got your dates.
You got it? Perfect.
November 10th, free agents can sign with any club. November 6th is the players become free agents. November 10th, free agents can sign with any club. November 8th through the 10th is the GM meeting in Las Vegas. November 15th, Rule 5 draft protection details. Then the November 18th tender deadline, and then December 5th through 7th winter meeting in San Diego, and then January 13th arbitration. So tomorrow we've got free agency, concluding some of the GM meetings over the next couple days. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of moves. There might be a few bombshell moves that happened on day one, but I think like we saw last year with Major League Baseball free agency, there weren't a lot of moves. There were some moves made on day one, day two, but then after that first wave, I think we wait. Mike, we're gonna be here till 12 o'clock. I'm gonna do my best to stick around till 12 o'clock. But last year we saw, in the last couple years really, Major League Baseball free agency saw some moves made early, and then most clubs were waiting until literally right before spring training, right before pitchers and catchers report. Then they start making more deals with people, because you have some guys like a Carlos Correa who 12 Eastern, Mike, 12 Eastern. You have some like Carlos Correa who would wait until right before, because maybe they're asking for a certain dollar amount that teams are not willing to go up to that amount. So I think for some of these players, and that's why I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see somebody like Aaron Judge not sign a contract right away on free agency day tomorrow, because he's going to have a few suitors. He's going to have a few teams that are going to throw the entire pocketbook at him. And he's going to have a good problem to have, is you're going to have a couple of these teams that are willing to open and negotiate with him about acquiring his services. So I think there's going to be a few of those guys that are waiting to see what the others do, because you know how free agency gets in a lot of sports now is you have one guy that gets a contract, and then all the other free agents that are kind of on the same level go, all right, that's the benchmark. I want minimum that. So they're all playing this game of chicken to wait and see who's going to get the most money so they can one-up them and get more money. Yeah. So I think that's what's happened in Major League Baseball the last couple off seasons. And then what are the baseball luxury tax threshold? 2023 is $233 million. 2024 is going to be $237 million. 2025 is going to be $241 million, and 2026 is going to be $244 million. So that's your baseball luxury tax for the next 3 years. So
slowly climbing. But yeah, Major League Baseball free agency, Ray mentioned, starts tomorrow on the 10th. So that'll be, if you're a baseball fan, this is an exciting time right now, because we just conclude the World Series and now free agency almost immediately starts. So we'll be ready to go. And we'll talk about all the big moves that happen in free agency later this week and going into next week here on ASAP in the morning. But one thing I had kind of mentioned about the World Series is it's the second least watched World Series since 2020.
Yep.
The 6 games averaged 11.7 million on Fox, which is down 1.3% from the 11.9 million for the Braves 6-game series win over the Astros last year, and ahead of only 2020, where it was 9.9 million watching and tuning in on average to the Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Rays. So I think part of, I want to get your 2 cents on this, Ray, because what do you think is kind of playing into why people aren't tuning in, or I should say historically compared to other World Series, why do you think there's a decrease in viewership for the World Series?
Because you play, 186 game season, 182 game season, and then you're getting your playoffs started in, October, and it runs all the way into November. Now when you're in the heart of football season, when the major football season starts, when you got teams playing their rivalries, you got the NFL season on top of that. To me, I think baseball needs to cut their season down. I mean, go from 182 games down to maybe 100 games or something like that. So you get your playoffs started in September and go all the way to October, where college football is not in the heart of their season, because the heart of their season was basically Saturday when this game was on. You had like a bunch of meaningful college football games. I mean, people are going to watch football than they are going to watch baseball on TV. That's basically what its standards is. Me, I think I'll maybe watch two innings of the World Series, maybe.
Yeah, I think that plays a part of it. The fact that I know there's been at least 1 or 2 games of the World Series where it was either on, I don't know, I think one of them was on a Monday, and basically you're having to choose. If you only have one TV, you have to choose: are you going to watch football or are you going to watch World Series baseball? And for even though Philadelphia is a very big market, around the country, you have so many other options to watch now. You have so many other options of things to watch that people aren't tuning in to baseball like they used to in the past. So this article from ESPN that kind of outlines all the viewership that I'm kind of referencing here, they had mentioned that the viewership for the World Series peaked at 51.5 million for Game 7 of the World Series in 1975. If you go all the way back and think about what was available then, that was the only thing to watch. You only had a few channels that you could actually tune into, and because of how like all these viewership and TV deals are made, that was the only thing to watch sports related, like most likely at that time. So now you've got all these different options. You have like 10 different ESPN channels. You've got 100 different channel options on cable packages, YouTube TV, Sling, Fubo, whatever you watch it on. You've got all these different options, and each sport or each network like Fox, ESPN, CBS, they all have their own sub channels about like SEC network, ACC network, CBS Sports Network, or there's all these different things to watch. And now you've got all these options. People just, I don't think it's the game is dying like people are saying that baseball's dying. It's just because there's more options, and you still have the same amount of baseball fans, maybe a few less baseball fans on average. But it's unless you know, like we've talked about this, Ray, where baseball, most of the game's up here. A lot of the game is up here.
Mental.
And for viewers that are like, they need to see action at all times, games like sports like football, even hockey to an extent, and football, baseball, or football, hockey, basketball, get that straight. Those games are more high action than baseball, and it's still a lot of thinking, but it's high intensity, fast-paced games. Baseball's not a fast-paced game. It's a methodical, strategic game. The battle at the plate between the pitcher and the batter, the shifts that are made, and you're making all these strategic moves. The mainstream fan whose attention span is now this big, thanks to everything else that's improved our technology, our attention spans are this big. People are not interested in sitting down and kind of watching and thinking through a baseball game. They're much more likely to see, like gladiatorial games. Like they want to see the action, the violence. So I think that just plays into why people aren't tuning into the World Series.
I mean, also too, you got to think about too, if you ain't as fans of the two teams in the World Series, those fans are not going to tune in.
Right.
I don't want to see Houston play. I mean, I seen Houston play last year against the Braves, and my team won. But I want to sit there and watch Houston play the freaking Philadelphia Phillies. Because I'm not a fan of it. I might be a fan of baseball, but that game is not going to pique my interest because, they just, to me, they wait too long. I like the way football season is set up where the Super Bowl plays in February, but it doesn't play on top of the NBA, stretch season of the NBA. They don't interact with the stretch season of the NBA season or the college basketball season. College football quits in January. Before the heated battle starts in January, the heated battle starts later on in January, beginning of February for the teams battling to where they're going to go and be in March Madness. Baseball is the only league that goes into everybody else's season, and it gets to a point where the World Series is played at a peak season of college football that you have big-time team playing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch college football with a big team. I don't care. I'm watching college football. That's just me.
Right.
Because I'm a football player. I'm a baseball player. But to me, I don't care about Houston. I don't care about Philly. That game did not interest me because I know it takes mentally. You got to sit there and watch, and you got to, as a fan on TV, you got to sit there and listen to these announcers say, okay, this and this, and you got to try to put two to two together. And if you're not a dominant baseball fan, know what these announcers are actually talking about, the viewers get lost and they turn the channel.
Well, you had mentioned that a lot of you yourself would turn into college football. Game 6 of the World Series that Houston clinched the title. There were also 3 big high-profile college football games being played on that same night. You had Florida State Miami on ABC, you had Clemson Notre Dame on NBC, and then you had Alabama LSU, which went into overtime, on ESPN. So all 3 of those games, you're taking fan bases or potential viewers away from watching baseball. And because they're much more invested, as like you said, into their college football team than they are against 2 teams that they're not affiliated with.
And if you look at it too, I have 3 computer screens. All 3 computer screens, I had Clemson on one thing. I had Alabama and LSU on the big screen. I had Georgia and Tennessee on one screen. I had I had all the big time, or I had Oregon game on these screens. I didn't have baseball on none of these screens. I might tune in and watch a little bit of clip of one inning because it was halftime. I wanted to see an action. I didn't want to see everybody else at halftime. I didn't want to hear those announcers talk. So that's part of maybe the 1 or 2 innings I catch is at halftime. And sometimes I turn over there, they're on commercial. So,
Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of, a handful of us that do morning shows like this, like I'll watch baseball, especially during the World Series, because I mean, we talk about it on this show. So I want to make sure that I'm staying up to date on everything, and I'm not going to be able to watch every college football game. So I'll pay attention to the high profile ones, but I'm going to be a little bit more watching of all the different sports as much as possible. And that's kind of, unless, you mentioned you got 3 screens, like if you've only got one TV or one option that you're watching, are you going to pick Alabama LSU or are you going to pick Game 6 of the World Series? You're likely going to pick Alabama LSU.
I mean, if you look at it this way too, I got 3 screens that got my TV. I got to get more because now I got more ways to watch college football. So now I'm going to put more in when I move in my office, I'm going to have more TVs all over the place and stuff like that. So
I could just see you in your office and you've got, you ever seen like the Matrix where he walks into that room, the one guy, he's got TVs all around surrounding the room.
Yep.
That's going to be Ray Cruz in like less than a year. He's just going to have a whole wall of TVs everywhere and it's going to be all different games. I don't know how you'd be able to keep up with all that.
Well, I do. I got a photographic memory. Something keys my eye. I'll watch that one particular game, but I got peripheral vision. I can see all my screens. I can see that, so I can see key plays of the game. But also, how do I talk about World Series and people want to know how I do it? I read about it because after the games, they put these recap articles out. And when we talk about baseball in here, I didn't see none of the game. I read and took notes of these recap articles because they tell you the just of the meat of the game that you want to talk about, but then I could figure out the rest of the game how it went, by just looking at the box scores. So that's how I talk about baseball, and people don't realize that. Hey, when I do when I do shows like this, and we're going to say we're talking about baseball, I'll read all the recaps of baseball, and I look at the box score, and I can tell you how many pitchers came in the thing by just looking at the box score.
Yeah. Damien made the comment that it was definitely not the same without Joe Buck. I tend to agree. Like a lot of my watching was, at work. They don't have the sound on because there's a bunch of different TVs all over the place. So I didn't have a chance to really kind of listen into a lot of the commentary, but I have heard that name come up a lot, is the fact that Joe Buck was out, not involved with the World Series anymore. And there's a big difference. I mean, when you have somebody who you're used to hearing every single year not be a part of it anymore, it's a bit of a change. It's definitely a little bit of a change, but I think that's something that we'll kind of get accustomed to over the coming years in the World Series. So it'll be a little change. It'll be okay though. It'll still be hopefully we just won't see the Astros in the World Series again next year, because I think everybody at this point is kind of tired of seeing them in it. But hey, when you set up your franchise the way that you have in Houston, that's what happens is you build it the right way. You build it through your farm system. And then you've got guys like Jeremy Pena, which I don't agree that he got World Series MVP. I think they did it because they need a new face of Houston. They need a new face of that organization. I think Altuve had a much better series than Jeremy Pena. But when he's the first rookie shortstop to win a Gold Glove, and then he has a pretty decent World Series. All right, I guess you could make the argument, but I guess that is what it is. But we'll talk more about MLB offseason as things continue to develop. We already kind of gave you a little bit of a calendar. Free agency starts tomorrow, so if you are a baseball fan, check your Twitter feeds. If you don't have Twitter, go get Twitter, because that's how you're going to find a lot of the breaking news. But we're gonna talk probably a little bit about that on tomorrow's show, weather willing, because both of us are kind of in the path of this tropical storm / Hurricane Nicole. So there's a possibility that neither one of us will be on tomorrow if we don't have power. So if you're watching, keep us. We will be fine. We will personally be fine. Just pray for us that we can be on the show tomorrow, because if we don't have power, we're not going to be on the show.
Nope.
But all right, I guess let's round this out. Unless you got some other stuff you want to talk about. I was going to talk about some NBA power rankings.
There you go.
We can talk about some power rankings, and I think probably the biggest surprise this season so far has been the early season downfall of the Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors so far, They started 3-7 in their first 10 games. And right now, as it stands today, Golden State is 4-7 and sitting 12th in the Western Conference. Defensively, they're not good, especially with Steph Curry off the floor. So there's a lot of good surprises, and there's a lot of really, I think, bad disappointments that in the early season. We kind of talked about the LA Lakers. They seem to have kind of turned it around a little bit with Russell Westbrook finally agreeing to come off the bench. I guess, do you have any big surprises from the early part of the NBA season, Ray?
I mean, to me, still, everybody had the Lakers on a pedestal, but, they still at number 20. The one I'm looking at right now, they're at number 26. Right now, Sacramento Kings down to 25. The Brooklyn Nets, I mean, that team is just in a disarray right now because you got Kyrie Irving who's suspended. You got to fire your coach. Now you got Kevin Durant, and we don't know how they're going to react. The front runners right now, Golden State dropped off a little bit too. I mean, I was surprised after watching them the first game of the season against the Lakers. I thought they were going to be around, but they kind of fell off, in a few games there too. Portland is a surprise team right now, ranked number 5. And then the Phoenix Suns at 4, then Memphis Grizzlies at 3. But Cleveland Cavaliers one surprise too. I mean, they're up to number 2 so far. So, and then you got the Milwaukee Bucks who are number 1. So.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of those early season Knicks winning games is shocking. Yeah, it's definitely there. I had a conversation on Saturday with Off the Ball Network. We talked a lot about NBA early season surprises and the Knicks and kind of the direction that they're taking. But I think that's probably. That team is not much of a surprise. We kind of know what to expect with them. They went out and got Jalen Brunson. They're going to win some games, and I think they're going to be in that play-in game range right now. They still got Julius Randle. They went out and spent some money for some guys, but I don't think they're in a position. They're not building their franchise through the draft. They're not building their franchise to be long-term sustainable without spending a ton of money. So the Knicks are kind of what I think we would expect them to be. You mentioned Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets are in complete disarray. I don't think that's terribly surprising for a lot because when you put all those combustible elements together on the same team, and then you've got disarray at the head coach position, there's just no consistency on this team. And I think that's a franchise that if you're the ownership group and you've come out and basically put one of your star players in Kyrie Irving on blast, you've suspended him without pay. Now you've got to figure out where they got to make wholesale changes. They got to get rid of Sean Marks at GM. They got to clean house, like legitimately clean house, and decide, is there one of these guys in this roster that we are going to build the franchise around, or are we going to try to trade away everything? All the people like Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, are we going to try to trade all those guys away, get as many assets back as we can, and just try to build it all again from the ground up? That's legitimately, I think, how I would approach it with the Nets, because right now, Ben Simmons is afraid to shoot the ball. He's just afraid. He's playing scared, and he doesn't look like he cares to improve his game. That's not a type of player. That's not a type of attitude that I would want on my team as an owner. And he's making way too much money.
Yeah, Ben Simmons don't have no confidence in his shots. That's the problem. He has no confidence whatsoever. His confidence has been shot since he left Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, he became, certain things he got ridiculed about him shooting air balls and stuff like that. So it played on the media. And then you go to New York, and what is the media is so grand fashion up in New York. So now you're getting berated by the New York media, which is worse than the Philadelphia media.
New York media is the hardest media to please in the United States, and there's no argument on that. I don't think. But I think we talk about like the island. You talk about in like the movies, the island of misfit toys. I think the Brooklyn Nets right now are the island of hurt feelings because that's legitimately what their 3 stars are. Is they get their feelings hurt and then they lash out, and it's a weird double standard that we hold athletes to. Is that when they're speaking up and they say things that we like to hear, we're like, oh, that's great. Yeah, speak up. That's awesome. Empower them. But then when they say things that we don't like, we're bashing them in the media like all these guys do. Like Kevin Durant has literally he's had burner accounts on social media, and he's not a fan in the media anymore. Kyrie Irving, I'm not even going to touch that subject. I'm not.
He thinks the earth is flat. So
he thinks a lot of things that I think a lot of people don't agree with. But that's besides the point. I think that team is, you don't have anybody who's as mentally tough, I think, as some other high profile players in the NBA. So if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you've basically got to try to tear it all down, try to get rid of these pieces. And I know there's a place in Los Angeles that would like to take at least one of those 3 players. So try to sell those guys off, I think, and try to rebuild and actually do it right. But the problem is that the New York media, and you mentioned it, the New York media is so difficult that the pressure to try to build slowly, like a Golden State Warriors have over the last number of years, there's not enough patience in that city for a franchise to actually build through the draft. And it forces their hand. Go back to when the Brooklyn Nets first started and they went and pulled and got Kevin Durant and Paul Pierce at the very end of their careers. And they're like, yeah, these guys are going to win us a title. Let's sell off everything to go get these guys who won a title in Boston. 1 title, by the way. And then what happened? It was a disaster because you're trying to piece it through free agency, and it doesn't work. You got to find an identity first, and then build that identity through the draft, and maybe bring in some key free agents who fit that identity. But I don't think the Nets have that identity, and that's what they got to figure out.
See, the way Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls were effective was they went out and got Scottie Pippen through a trade. They got Michael Jordan. They put them together. They clashed together. They became friends and stuff like that. But they put role players around them. Basketball is you got to have a few superstars and role players. Players that do the dirty thing, to go out and set these screens, set the stuff. You can have a dominant team that, like, you're going to tell Anthony Davis, hey, you need to go set a screen for LeBron. Well, why I got to set a screen for him? Why can't he set a screen for me? Or you got too many egos that want the ball at the end of the game, shot clock. Everybody in Chicago knew Michael Jordan would have the ball with the last few minutes of the game, and he will either create for another player or he will create his own shot to win games. And Scottie Pippen knew. And if you watch some of the documentaries on Scottie Pippen, he said, we knew Michael got the look. When Michael got the look, you give him the ball and get the hell out of the way. That's what he said in a thing. And I'm going to touch the bases here. You know, I don't really like LeBron James as a basketball player, but his thing about Kyrie Irving caught my eye. And this is a quote from him on the New York Times.com. I believe Kyrie did cause some harms to a lot of people. James said Friday in Los Angeles after the Lakers lost to Utah Jazz. He added, quote, this is from LeBron James, if you are promoting, soliciting, or saying harmful things to any community that harm people, then I don't respect it. I don't condone it. And I think that's something that he came out with. I respect that from him, but, as a basketball player, I really don't like him, because I'm an MJ. He's put himself on this pedestal and he thinks he's better than everybody else. And to me, by him coming and saying that and condemn Kyrie Irving and not putting anything. But to me, I think all of basketball, you got to have role players. If you don't have that certain role player that plays competent to your superstars, you're not going to have a basketball team. You're going to have a full, what you call misfit island, basketball, a bunch of misfits. That's what the Lakers. Lakers don't have certain role players. They don't have that role player that will come in there and set them nasty screens or hit a key 3-pointers. The way the Chicago Bulls set up when Michael Jordan was, they had Paxson. Then Paxson left. They had Kerr. Kerr, what were they? 3-point specialists. Boom, they put them in the 3-point specialist range. They had Horace Grant as a rebounder. When Horace Grant left, they went out and got Dennis Rodman for rebounding, and plus him playing with Karl Malone's ass, in the NBA playoffs. So I mean, that's one thing to get Karl Malone off his game. But I mean, then they had They had Bill Cartwright at center. Then Luke Longley came along. They weren't household. Bill Cartwright might be a household name, but Luke Longley wasn't a household name. And they got Bill Cartwright towards the end of his career.
Yep.
Then they had Robert Parrish at the end of his career. They had John Solly come in there and just to hack you. They had role players. That's what you set up a team. That's why they stayed in these long runs that Chicago did with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. They added people. They added the certain key elements. Like the Lakers are missing some of these key elements, or in practice, Michael Jordan, they said Michael Jordan practiced like he played in the game. How many NBA players you hear now saying, hey, I'm practicing like I'm playing in the game? Very little. Even Jordan got in a fight with some of his teammates, punched Kerr in the face. But still, that's the way Michael Jordan prepared himself in practice as he prepared himself as in a game. And NBA players are not doing that now.
Yeah, and I wanted to go back to the comment. I want to say, hey, to Dre. Dre's tuning in right now. What's going on, Dre Montez? College football breakdown co-host on Saturday mornings here on ASAP Network. But Damien's question about the Ben Simmons trade, and this is kind of what we're talking about right now. Early season surprises, disappointments, and we've been talking about the Brooklyn Nets and kind of how they've been a huge disappointment. And Damien's question about no one's really won this trade because neither team has looked good this season at all. When you make a trade like this, you're not looking just for this season. You're looking at the longevity of the franchise too, because in that trade, the Nets traded Paul Millsap and Harden to Philly. Now, on paper, that looks great because James Harden has actually played better than he's played in a long time in Philly right now, being kind of the go-to guy. He's in better shape than he was the last couple years. He's looked pretty good. So he's not the problem. They got coaching problems in Philadelphia. That's their problem right now. The Nets, they got Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. Now, the fact that they got 2 first-round picks, that's going to help them out already long-term. Seth Curry is a great shooter. He's somebody you can utilize. Andre Drummond is Andre Drummond. I mean, I've seen him play his career in Detroit. He's a very good rebounder, and that's kind of about it. That's about all he does. He has started to kind of expand his game to try to shoot threes. But I think from the early season, I'm not selling the Philadelphia 76ers just yet because they've had some tough games this point in the season. They're still 5-6? Yeah, they're 5-6 right now through 11 games, but their losses have been Boston, Milwaukee, San Antonio, but Toronto and New York. 4 of those teams that are considered to be playoff type teams. Yes, I know Andre Drummond's in Chicago now, but he was part of that trade is what I'm saying, because you asked about that trade. Yeah, he's not in Brooklyn anymore. I know, I understand. But 4 of those losses are right now, 4 of those 6 losses are against playoff teams. So I'm not selling off the 76ers just yet this season. They've still got a long way to go. Cleveland has been a big surprise, I think, in a positive way, being 8-2 through 10 games. But they're a team that was now expected to make a big leap forward. You got some teams right now. Indiana's playing pretty well at 5-5, surprisingly. Same thing with the Wizards playing in that play-in spot. So I think for Philadelphia, they're sitting at 10. They're going to move up, I think, into that top 6 range over the course of the season. But their big thing is they got to figure out what's going on with Doc Rivers, because I think it's time that we actually put feet to the fire for Doc Rivers. He's one of probably the biggest hot seat names right now for the NBA, and for good reason. You know, he's just made some really weird rotation substitutions, and it's just things. There's really no offensive continuity right now for this team. Philadelphia, their defense isn't ideal. So there's a lot of question marks going on there. So I don't think both teams have lost. They both got what they kind of wanted. Philadelphia wanted Ben Simmons out, and they got that. And they also got 2 first-round picks out of it. So that's a win. And Philadelphia ended up getting James Harden in return, who's already going to be your best player on the court because he's going to play more often than Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid can't stay healthy, and they load manage him like crazy. So
James Harden's in a walking boot right now. He was out for November 6th game. Right. Then you got Daniel House Jr., who's day-to-day for the injury report. So for Philly.
But he was in some of the best shape coming into this season in his career. Early season had played pretty well. So I'm not selling off the Sixers. This next month, while Harden is still out, is going to be a really big indicator to where the direction of this team goes the rest of the way, because they have his name escapes me right now. Tyrese Maxey. That's who it is. Tyrese Maxey is now taking over a lot of the point guard duties, and he's had a hell of a season already. 23 points a game. He's shooting almost 50% from 3. He's been a great highlight early season for the Sixers. And now with Harden being out, you mentioned that he's in a walking boot. I think he's out for about a month, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what we kind of talked about.
Yeah, he's right now 4th on the depth chart. He's out, but he's on the 4th of the depth chart.
Yeah, so Tyrese Maxey has been playing really well the last couple. He had I think he had a career high 30-40 points in the last week or something. I'd have to double check that. But I know he's had a few games where Philly fans are excited about having him as part of this team. So if they're going to blow anything up, he's a guy that's probably not going to be touched. But they got to figure out what's going on with Doc Rivers. But I think that in the Eastern Conference, that's probably kind of where where some of these teams are, surprises, disappointments. Western Conference, we already mentioned Golden State as a big disappointment. And I think the biggest surprise has to be the Utah Jazz. Utah 9-3. They've been playing well above expectations to start the year. Lauri Markkanen had a huge game the other night, and they're in the top 10 in both points per game and opposing points per game. So they're playing great team basketball right now. And they've beaten some good teams. They've beaten some really good teams. They beat Denver, Minnesota in overtime, New Orleans in overtime. They've beaten Memphis twice. They just beat the Lakers twice in the last week. And they beat the Clippers on November. They've been beating some really good teams that were not expected. They were not expected to have 9 wins early in this season.
Man, so you got to give credit out to Utah Jazz, Will Hardy, who started his coaching career as assistant coach in 2015, 2021 with San Antonio Spurs under Greg Popovich, and then he was an assistant on the Boston Celtics staff from 2021 to 2022. Now he took over the Utah Jazz. So you got to like what he's doing there. Also, if you look at the roster too, some of the roster changes for the Utah Jazz without without Mitchell and without Colbert there, too. You got Conley, you got Clarkson. So you gotta like way that he's put this team on his back and say, hey, look, Mike Conley is the point guard, starting point guard. Jordan Clarkson, shooting guard. Small forward is Laurie Markkanen, and then you had
Markkanen.
Yeah, and then you have Gerard Vanderbilt, and then you have
Vanderbilt,
and then you have Kelly Olynyk.
Yep, Kelly Olynyk.
And then you got your first round draft pick, Walter Kessler, as your second depth chart. You have Rudy Gay coming in behind on your second line.
He's
then you
still
got
playing too. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then you got Talon Horton Tucker, who's coming in on small forward, and you got Colin Sexton, and then you move Jordan Clarkson up behind Conley on the point guard. So I mean, they got a good nucleus. They got a good nucleus, and the way Will Harden's playing too, he took some of Popovich's style and he took some of the Celtic styles and made a team that's more consistent.
Well, one thing I mentioned over the weekend is that with this team specifically, you've got a lot of guys who've got something to prove. A handful of these guys are playing for contract extensions. They're playing for hitting free agency in the next year. Some of these guys have player options coming up at the end of this year, team options. So you've got a lot of guys that are playing, having something to prove. And when you've got a whole group of guys doing that with little expectations and they're playing with a lot to prove, this is what you can see. You mentioned Colin Sexton coming off the bench. He's their third leading scorer as being essentially their sixth man. The play of, you mentioned Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson. Lauri Markkanen's leading this team in a few different categories. He's been, the knock on him has always been injuries. He's never really played long enough, but he's already so far early in the season shown that he's arguably the best player on this team. So if you're the Utah Jazz and you were trying to sell off all your assets to kind of build through the draft and build around a few guys, you've got a good group of guys that are now not only playing well to help your team win right now, but they're also showcasing to the rest of the league that, hey, like Mike Conley's a guy who's in his mid to late 30s. He's a guy that can be trade bait at the deadline to go to a contender, to be able to help make a push for a championship. Same thing with Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk, he was a guy that was in Detroit, got paid. He got a decent sized contract, and he was part of that trade to move out of Detroit, came in, and he's been playing well. He's been shooting almost 60% from three on, 20 of 34 so far. He's been showing like he can be a piece to help. So I think the Utah Jazz, if they get about another month in and they're still sitting in the top 5 in the standings, I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah start making some calls and say, hey, we got these guys. You see what they're doing with us. They can do something with you, and try to get more and more draft picks, because they've already got a huge haul of draft picks trading Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert.
I mean, if you're sitting at 9-3 and Nick's still in the first in the division, why would you trade Mike Conley away?
Because they're not in a position to win a championship. They're not. You need stars and pieces to build around. Everybody right now is tanking for Victor Wemb and Scoot Henderson at the top of the draft. So for a team like Utah, they traded away their franchise pieces.
Yeah.
And they've basically got a hodgepodge of guys that are not franchise building pieces. And you're not going to ask a 35-year-old, 36-year-old Mike Conley to be like, hey, we want you to be the centerpiece of our franchise now moving forward. That's too much to ask for somebody in his position, where he's more of a role player to play and help out a championship team, instead of being a star player on paper bad team.
I mean, they're 9-3. I mean, if you look at look, I know it's early and stuff like that, but if they continue to win and continue to lead their division, you go and you trade some of these players away, then you can mess up their nucleus.
They don't have it. They don't have a nucleus. What I'm saying is they pulled in these guys trading away their assets.
Yeah, no,
you
but
have to build NBA. You have to build with a star. They don't have a star in this team.
not necessarily. Not
Agree to
necessarily.
disagree. Agree to disagree.
I know, but not necessarily, because if you have Mike Conley and you have the role players are playing very well right now, and they're playing team basketball, a team basketball will be a team that's with a bunch of superstars. You know, because team basketball is team basketball. They have what you call aspiration. Hey, I need the ball at this time. I need the ball at this time. They playing within their game. And if Will Hardy is got this game playing right now, and you got a team that's right now 9-3, and they go, let's take an advance here. Let's go all the way to the stretch mark. Stretch is after the NBA All-Star. If this team is up there and it's still in first place, and their nucleus is working, why would you go mess up that nucleus?
Because you are not going to rely on a 35-year-old Mike Conley to be the star of this team. You're not. But I think if they are at the top of near the top of the division rankings at the All-Star break, I could see them trading some pieces to bring somebody else in to help make a push for the playoffs. I could see that. But I think it's a great story to start the year. If they continue the next month to kind of be in the same position, they have a decision to make, because I think
who would you go after for that superstar for this team then? What superstar would you go after?
It depends on what some of the other teams are doing right now, because if you have to look at who's some teams that are not very good right now. You'd have to, Miami's at 4-7. They're not going to trade anybody off. You could probably make a play to buy off one of Brooklyn's stars. But there's not a ton out there right now that's available, that's actively being shopped and available. That's going to be kind of a game changer. But what I'm saying is that this team, as it's constructed, look at the teams that are long-term sustaining success in the league. They have built around star players, and that's how you win in the NBA. You don't have one on this team. You have a great story right now, and you have a great hodgepodge of guys that have kind of been shipped off to go to Utah. And it would be a great story. But the way this team is set up, they were actively hoping to tank by selling off all your pieces. You're actively hoping to tank and just rebuild your franchise and hit the reset button. This is a pleasant surprise for Utah fans. But I don't think this is not their long-term plan. I can tell you that right now. You got Danny Ainge there. This is not your long-term plan.
I know it ain't your long-term plan, but still, like I said, game of basketball, if you got your nucleus playing very well and you playing team basketball, you have no interaction with no people with no beef, and you're playing together as a basketball team. I'd rather have a team with no superstars playing together who's still winning at a high level, still continue to win, and then you draft your players on the offseason and in the drafts. Basketball is a game of timing. And if you got a good timing right now, Will Hardy has come in at a good time because he has nucleus with Danny Ainge because of the Celtic years. He knows he had a great Tulich and coaching and Greg Popovich, one of the best coach in the NBA, with less talent that he has and show how to win. He has put a system between the Celtics and the San Antonio Spurs together that is working right now. Even though it's early in the season and you try to go get that one superstar come in, could change the whole team, and then all of a sudden you fall off where you were at the beginning by the time you make that draft. That trade. Then you fall off.
Yeah.
Then you got to build back up again.
The thing about Utah, too, is that they're not a big market. So they're not likely, and this kind of plays, I guess, to your point a little bit, they're not likely going to go and get somebody who's expensive. You know what I mean? Like they're not they're likely not going to go get that. So they have to build through the draft. They have to build through making these trades that are team friendly. So if it does work, hey, maybe Lauri Markkanen is finally the star that they were hoping for him to be early in his career. And if that happens, hey, that's great, because that's what you want. Is you want to build around a young core, whether it's like Boston, they built around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and you start building around that. If Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson, who's been playing out of his mind lately, if you can build around those two guys, even though they're kind of a few years into their career, if that's your nucleus, hey, that'll work. But it's to this team, the whole thing about the NBA is you want to put yourself in a position to win a championship. I don't see this team being a championship caliber team, but hey, if we get to the All-Star break and they're still top of the Western Conference, I'll admit that I was wrong. I'll admit that I was wrong. And that's all we can do, right? That's all we can do.
I mean, they got no bad pieces. I mean, they got Ukuda Azubi from Kansas. I love his freaking name is.
Ukoda Azubuike.
Yeah, so he's 7 foot tall, 270 pounds. You know, you got him. His age is 23. They got some young people in there.
Azubuike is a very raw talent. Even at Kansas, he had high expectations and he did not perform. He's got a really raw skill set. But yeah, he's a possibility. But to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I want two questions to ask from Damien. One's NBA and the other one is just kind of an open forum question to touch on. But we kind of mentioned why are the Warriors not looking good right now. I think they've got to figure out what to do defensively. They're getting too fast and loose with the basketball. They're not taking care of it. As of a few days ago, they were leading the league in turnovers. They were in top 2 in assists, but they were tied for the league in turnovers. And when you got guys that are out there playing fast and loose, not taking care of the basketball and not essentially playing defense, that's what you're going to run into. The Warriors have lost games against the Pistons, the Magic. Because they haven't been playing defense. When Steph Curry's on the floor, they have a much better chance of winning when he's not on the floor. And it's a huge spread. I know that sounds like a basic comment, but it's a huge spread. If you look at the splits, even defensive rating from when Curry's on the floor to when Curry's off the floor, and Curry's not a great on-ball defender. But when he's on the floor compared to off, this defensive rating of this team tanks. And they got to find an identity on defense. They know what they're going to get offensively. So I think they've got some few things to work out. I'm not worried about the Warriors just yet, but I think they'll figure it out.
Their defensive guy is Andre Iguodala. He's out.
Well, Iguodala doesn't really play minutes anymore. He plays at key defensive possessions for him when they're going down the stretch. They won't play him in the first 2-3 quarters, but going down the stretch, they put him out there defensively wise. So, I mean, that goes one of your defensive Ken Carlos. Does Dante Davini Zaro, whatever? Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah, these foreign names, man. But anyway, I'm butchering names here. But he's out too. I mean, that's one of your small fours that you're on your depth chart that's number 2 behind Andrew Wiggins.
I got to correct you on something. Andre Iguodala hasn't even played a game this year. He's not.
Yeah, he's been out.
No, because he doesn't play anymore. Like he legit is there as a player coach.
Yeah, I know what he's there for, but he's been out too for the start of the season. So
yeah, you got to. I mean, to your point, you've got a few guys that you were hoping as the Warriors. James Wiseman finally got a chance to play. He's been out all of last year. You went out and you gave a big contract to Andrew Wiggins, who's your second leading scorer. Jonathan Kuminga hasn't really played very well this early part of the season. You've got a couple of guys that need to step up and play better. And Klay Thompson, we don't really know what's going on with him other than he he's played 9 of their 10 games, or 9 of their 11 games, excuse me. But his 3-point shooting, or his just shooting in general, it's not quite up to the par that we kind of expect from him. He's almost shooting under 30% from 3 right now.
He's still coming back up to injury too.
Correct. You're right. He might not be back to 100% physically and mentally, but I think they've got a few question marks, Damian, that they've got to address. And that, I think one of them is what's going on with, what are you going to do with Draymond Green? Are you going to move on from him? Are you going to sign him? Do you have enough money considering how much you gave Curry, Wiggins, Poole, and Klay Thompson? They got a few question marks. But the last question I want to round out is, he had asked earlier in the show, wasn't really relevant to what we were talking about at the time. Question about our thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' Pat McAfee interview. I will say this. Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers are now like, they're buddy-buddy, right? They're buddy-buddy. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is he's got this platform now with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's been great. I give a lot of credit for how he's kind of built his brand, his show, his platform, and how he's built it so quickly, and been a bright spot for kind of this industry that we're all in. But Aaron Rodgers, everybody gets the blame but himself. Everybody gets the blame but himself. He goes, his quote was, "I don't think the Lions really stopped us. It was more about us making mistakes." Well, Aaron Rodgers, when you throw multiple red zone interceptions, I don't think that's all on you. It might have been just good defense. Kirby Joseph, who was Defensive Player of the Week, by the way, had a hell of a game. Multiple picks, multiple pass breakups. I think he had the game with 5 tackles. Like, he had a solid game. The Lions aren't the best team in the NFL. That's for damn sure. I can tell you that, watching that team week in and week out. They're not the best team, but they've had the Packers' number for the last 2 years. Take that how you will. But I think part of this is just Aaron Rodgers complaining. And I love how Tony on our network calls him Karen Rodgers. It's hilarious, because that's kind of what's going on here. Is he's complaining about, oh, well, this wasn't, he says he doesn't care what the experts say. He doesn't care, like, oh, well, we didn't, they didn't beat us. We lost the game. It's a little bit BS to me.
Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to point a finger, just like Jalen Ramsey points fingers at everybody on the offensive of the LA Rams. I mean, these players are just about themselves, not about the team. And, saying, hey, look, it could be a combination. It could be a combination of great defense by the Detroit Lions corner. It could be miss route run by the wide receiver, and it could be a poorly thrown ball by, Karen Rodgers, what we're going to call him now, here on the All Sports All Plays Network. But, come on. I look at his outside life, too. He's been with Dana Compatriot. She left him because she was getting blamed for everything in their relationship. So, he doesn't take it. Look at his family. He's disalienated from his family, too. So, this dude is not right in the head or something, or he thinks he's greater than sliced bread, and Green Bay should go but without a good wide receiver, Aaron Rodgers is not that good. In my point of view.
Yeah, so I think he's got to take some accountability, and that's something that he doesn't really do well. He doesn't take accountability. It's always, he was throwing his teammates under the bus for a while, and then now all of a sudden after the trade deadline, they didn't make any moves. He's like, oh, us. Like, they didn't stop us. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it, Damian. But I don't really pay much attention. Like, I got a lot of appreciation for Pat McAfee, but I don't watch this because Roger's buddy AJ Hawk is also on this broadcast. I don't pay attention to that segment most of the time. I just don't care to watch it because we've got so many other things to pay attention to in the world of sports. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch the weekly segment with Aaron Rodgers because I don't really care.
Now, the question is Father Time getting to Aaron Rodgers at age 38?
I think if Aaron Rodgers had a bit better supporting cast on offense, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because part of what's gone into it for him is the fact that I think part of it is he has not taken the time to really develop a relationship with his receivers. He didn't do it in the offseason. He said it early in the year. Well, I'm not here to babysit. I'm here to win games. Okay, but they're your teammates. And, they deserve, if you want to have a good relationship on offense and a smooth running offense, you've got to spend some time with them. You've got to work with them. But he has not done that.
How you get the timing down if you don't work with them on the offseason? How you get timing down?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you just like this. Trevor Lawrence might not be a great quarterback in the NFL right now, but he did get when Zay Jones came over, Marvin Jones came over, when he got drafted, he made sure that his receivers were there so he could learn their routes, learn how they run their routes, learn the chemistry between each other. When they got Evan Ingram here, first day he stepped out. Him and Trevor Lawrence went to a local high school, and they threw about 100 200 balls together just get the rhythm together. And if you don't spend time with your wide receivers, how do you know what they can run, what they can do and can't do? I mean, they added some new wide receivers. I mean, I know Lazard, he's got some familiarity with him because he's been on the team for a while. But the other wide receivers that came over, he has no rapport with them. And how you build rapport with them? You got to get out there and know them. You got to spend time with them. And him just not spending time with him and think he can come through training camp, OTA training camp, and get familiar with them and stuff like that during those time frames, it doesn't work. You got to spend extra time outside the game of football, and you got to be the coach when the coach can't talk to you or you can't develop the team. But it never says that the team can't go out there and practice together, And I'm proud that what Trevor Lawrence has done here in Jacksonville. He even got the offensive line out there and learned their stuff out there with them during these all-season practice.
Yeah, so I think for Aaron Rodgers, that's the first part is you gotta take accountability. And I think part of it is, like I said, if he had a better supporting cast, which part of that's on the franchise has got to try to go out and get the best players,
right?
Within the constructs of their franchise, whatever that means. But they made an active decision that when Aaron Rodgers did not take a pay cut. They basically said, all right, you can either choose to take a pay cut, we'll keep Devontae, or if you don't take a pay cut, we're going to let him walk. So Aaron Rodgers called their bluff, and then the Packers turned around and called his bluff. So now we're seeing that the franchise was not willing to work. They were not willing to work with each other. And now you see some of that dysfunction. So I think to answer your question, did Father Time catch up with him? To an extent, yes, it catches up with all players that are past 35 years old. But I think part of it is the fact that if they had a better supporting cast and they didn't have 4 or 5 losses in a row, we wouldn't be having this conversation because we'd be talking about the Packers being near the top of the division again. And then this would just be, oh, look at how good Aaron Rodgers is. So I think it's a little bit of both. But as obviously that's good. That's always a developing story. And if you want to check out all the other great developing stories and all the great content from some of your favorite shows on the All Sports All Plays Network, you got to follow on social media. You can find us. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and on the Roku app, Fox D Network, and Tiki Live. You can find us on Facebook at All Sports All Plays, YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network, Twitter at ASAP Network 1, and on Twitch at ASAP Network. You can hit the like, the share, subscribe, and comment during the show. We'll hear your takes. see what your comments are on the latest happenings in the world of sports. Well, we're way over time, so we've got to roll. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today, Ray?
No, I think this was a very productive show talking about different areas. We covered most of the realm of sports, the NBA, Major League Baseball, trade, the problems with certain teams in the NBA. We talked about the Colts comedy act that they're now doing, starting Jeff Saturday as the head coach. So, I mean, we touched the key points of the day. Also, if you're in the Florida area, we're going to keep everybody in prayer. I hope everybody keeps us in prayer because we're both in the state of Florida. I'm in Jacksonville. He's in Delane, outside of Orlando. So outside of Daytona and Orlando area in the middle. So, and this storm is coming into and going to boomerang. It's supposed to come across, boomerang back up, come up this way, come up to South Carolina and all that. So remember the people on the East Coast right now. Yes, hurricane season is supposed to be over, but it didn't stop this storm. So,
it's not stopping this storm. So we may be here tomorrow ASAP in the morning, 10 a.m. If the storm knocks out our power, we'll figure something out. But, God willing, we will be here tomorrow, 10 a.m. ASAP in the morning. Quick shout out tonight, my alma mater, Western Michigan football, playing tonight on ESPNU at 7 o'clock, and the Pistons on the road at the Celtics at 7:30 tonight. So shout out to those guys. Good luck. Good luck. Western Michigan needs it. They're in a bad way right now. But for Ray Cruz, I am Craig Campbell. Have a great Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on ASAP in the morning at 10 a.m. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Peace out, brothers.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. Great eye in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.